I walked through the glass doors of Blackwell Architectural Partners for what might be the last time. 20 years of dedication reduced to a cardboard box of personal items. My design portfolio remained on the firm's servers, my intellectual property now claimed by the company my own mother had founded. "They're waiting for you in the boardroom, Sophia," her assistant said, avoiding my eyes. I nodded, straightening my charcoal blazer before entering the lion's den. Around the polished conference table sat the board of directors, with my cousin Victor at the head, a position that should have been mine. "Ah, Sophia, thank you for joining us." Victor's smile never reached his eyes. At 42, he had my mother's sharp features but none of her vision. "I trust you've received the transition documents." "You mean my termination papers?" I kept my voice level despite the anger threatening to boil over. "Yes, I've seen them." "Excellent." He glanced at the other board members, all men he'd appointed after my mother's retirement last year. "The board feels Blackwell needs to move in a more commercial direction. Your focus on sustainable design, while admirable, isn't profitable enough in today's market." "Sustainable architecture is the future," I countered. "Our Hudson project will generate 30% more revenue than projected specifically because of its environmental innovations." Victor waved his hand dismissively. The Hudson project was a fluke. Clients want predictable designs with proven returns, not experimental green buildings that cost more upfront. Mother always said. "Aunt Margaret is enjoying retirement in Provence," Victor interrupted. "She's entrusted the company to me now. And frankly, Sophia, having a woman as lead architect was fine in the early 2000s when it made us look progressive. But our Middle Eastern and Asian clients prefer dealing with male leadership." The casual sexism stunned me into momentary silence. I'd heard whispers of these sentiments but never expected them spoken so plainly. "Is that all?" I finally asked, my hands clenched beneath the table. "Your severance package is generous," one of the board members offered, looking uncomfortable. 6 months' salary, provided you sign the non-compete agreement." "Non-compete," I echoed. Victor smiled thinly. "Standard procedure. You won't be able to work for any architectural firm in the Northeast for 2 years. We can't have you taking our clients, can we?" I stood up, gathering my dignity. "I'll have my lawyer review the documents." "Don't bother fighting this, Sophia," Victor called as I reached the door. "Blackwell was always too big for you to handle alone." I walked out without responding, past colleagues who averted their gazes. Only my assistant Rachel met my eyes, her own red-rimmed with tears. "I don't understand," she whispered, following me to my office. "Your mother built this company around your designs. The sustainable division is our fastest-growing segment." "Victor has always been threatened by success he didn't create himself," I said, packing my awards and photos. I paused at the framed image of my mother and me at the opening of our first LEED Platinum certified building. We were both beaming, champagne glasses raised in triumph. "What will you do now?" Rachel asked. I carefully wrapped the photo in tissue paper. "I'm not sure yet, but whatever it is, I'll build it on my own terms." That evening, I sat in my loft apartment overlooking the city skyline, a view I might not be able to afford much longer. The non-compete agreement lay unsigned on my coffee table next to a glass of Cabernet. If I signed, I'd receive financial security but lose my professional identity for 2 years. If I refused, I faced potential litigation from a company with deep pockets. My phone rang, displaying my best friend Nadia's name. A brilliant structural engineer, she left Blackwell last year to start her own engineering consultancy. "I just heard," she said when I answered. "Victor is a fool." "A fool with power," I replied, taking a sip of wine. "He's offering me a decent severance package if I sign away my right to work in architecture for 2 years. "Don't you dare sign that," she snapped. "Listen, can you meet me for dinner? There's something I want to discuss." 2 hours later, we sat at a quiet corner table in our favorite restaurant, empty plates pushed aside as Nadia outlined her proposal. "I've been thinking about expanding beyond structural engineering," she explained, showing me figures on her tablet. "Creating a full-service sustainable design firm, but I need a visionary architect to make it work. Someone with impeccable credentials in green building." I studied the business plan she drafted. "This is ambitious, Nadia." "It's the perfect time," she insisted. "The market for sustainable architecture is growing exponentially. Traditional firms like Blackwell are too conservative to capitalize on it fully. We could create something revolutionary." I'd need startup capital, I mused, my mind already calculating figures. And I have to fight the non-compete. My firm is already established. You wouldn't be competing. You'd be joining as a partner in a different type of business. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. We could call it terraform design, building the future by respecting the earth. For the first time since Victor had called me into that boardroom, I felt a spark of hope. Let me think about it. Don't think too long, Nadia cautioned. I already have 3 potential clients asking for exactly what we could offer together. The next morning, I called my mother's old friend James Chen, one of the city's top business attorneys. After explaining my situation, I asked about the non-compete. These agreements are often more intimidation than substance, he said after reviewing the document, especially in creative fields that can't legally prevent you from earning a living in your profession. So I don't have to sign. I wouldn't. And if you joined an established firm as a partner, focusing specifically on sustainable architecture, you'd have a strong case that you're not directly competing with Blackwell's primary business model. Victor would still sue, I pointed out. Probably, James agreed. But would a public lawsuit claiming sustainable architecture threatens their business be good publicity for them? I smiled for the first time in days. No, it wouldn't. Your mother was one of my first clients, James said more gently. Margaret always said you had twice her talent and 3 times her stubbornness. She'd want you to fight. I left his office with renewed determination. By the end of the week, I had declined a severance package, returned the unsigned non-compete agreement, and scheduled a meeting with Nadia and her financial advisor. Terraform Design was born on paper a month later. We secured a small office space in a renovated warehouse, ironically, a building I had designed for Blackwell 5 years earlier as one of their first sustainable renovation projects. Rachel joined us as office manager, bringing her organizational skills and insider knowledge of Blackwell's operations. Victor is furious, she informed me gleefully on her first day. He's already threatened to sue, but the board is getting nervous. 2 major clients have asked specifically about the sustainable division, and they had to admit you're no longer with the firm. Word spread quickly through the architectural community. By our 3rd month, we'd secured 5 projects, small commercial renovations focused on energy efficiency and sustainable materials. They weren't the prestigious downtown skyscrapers I'd designed at Blackwell, but each one represented freedom and the future. True to Rachel's prediction, Victor's lawyer sent a cease and desist letter claiming I had violated the spirit of professional conduct by establishing a competing business without signing the non-compete. James responded with a masterfully worded letter that essentially invited them to proceed with legal action if they wanted to publicly position themselves against sustainable building practices. They didn't pursue it further. Our breakthrough came unexpectedly. The Fitzgerald Foundation, a major environmental nonprofit, announced a competition for their new headquarters, a zero-carbon building that would showcase the possibilities of sustainable architecture. The budget was substantial, and the publicity would be invaluable. This is exactly what we need, Nadia said during our strategy session. But we're competing against established firms with more resources. We have something they don't, I countered. Complete commitment to the mission. This isn't a marketing opportunity for us, it's our entire reason for existing. We worked around the clock for weeks, pouring everything we had learned into the proposal. Our design incorporated living walls, rainwater harvesting, solar integration, and innovative ventilation systems that would eliminate the need for conventional heating and cooling. The materials were locally sourced, with carbon footprints meticulously calculated and offset. When the shortlist was announced, Terraform Design was among the 5 finalists. So was Blackwell Architectural Partners. The morning of the final presentation, I arrived at the Fitzgerald Foundation's current offices to find Victor waiting in the lobby. He looked impeccable as always, but there was a tightness around his eyes I recognized as stress. Sophia, he acknowledged coolly, I'm surprised you made it this far. Are you really? I asked. Sustainable design was always my specialty, not yours. The board is considering legal action, you know. This little venture of yours is a clear attempt to capitalize on Blackwell's reputation. I smiled. Terraform has its own reputation now. How is Blackwell doing, by the way? I heard the Chen Development Group dropped you from their office tower project. His jaw tightened. Temporary setback. Mr. Blackwell, Ms. Reyes, the receptionist called. The committee will see you now. We entered the boardroom together, presenting one after the other. Victor's design was technically proficient but safe, a conventionally attractive building with some green features added like accessories. When my turn came, I spoke passionately about architecture as environmental stewardship, about buildings that gave more than they took. I showed them not just renderings but systems, organisms working in harmony. A week later, Rachel burst into my office waving her phone. We got it. The Fitzgerald Commission is ours. The next few months were a whirlwind. The Fitzgerald headquarters became our calling card, attracting attention from clients who wanted more than token sustainability features. We hired 3 more architects and 2 additional engineers. Nadia expanded her team. Our little warehouse office filled with drafting tables, material samples, and the energy of people inspired by purpose. 9 months after we opened our doors, I received an unexpected visitor. My mother stood in our reception area, elegant as always in a linen suit, her silver hair cut in the same precise bob she'd worn for decades. "Mother," I said, surprised. "I thought you were in France." "I fly back occasionally to check on things." Her eyes took in our office space, the exposed brick walls covered with design renderings, the staff gathered around a conference table reviewing blueprints. "Victor didn't mention how successful you've become." "Victor and I don't exactly exchange Christmas cards." She smiled slightly. "No, I suppose not." She walked to a display model of the Fitzgerald headquarters. "This is extraordinary work, Sophia. Truly visionary." "Thank you," I said, warmth spreading through me at her praise. "Would you like the full tour?" As we walked through the office, introducing her to the team, explaining our current projects, I saw her expression shift from polite interest to genuine excitement. "You've created something special here," she said when we returned to my office. "Something I always hoped Blackwell might become." "You could have steered it in this direction," I pointed out. "You were the CEO." She sighed, sitting in a chair across from my desk. "I made a mistake with Victor. I thought the company needed traditional leadership to grow. I was wrong." She met my eyes directly. "The board asked me to return as an advisor. Blackwell is struggling. Victor's leadership hasn't produced the results they expected." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. Blackwell had been my home for most of my professional life. "I've reviewed your recent projects," my mother continued. "The Fitzgerald headquarters, the Taylor renovation, the University Research Center. You're doing the work I always believed in." "We're just getting started," I told her. "I know." She reached into her handbag and removed a slim folder. "That's why I'm here. I'd like to invest in terraform design." I stared at her. "What?" "A significant investment," she clarified, sliding the folder across my desk. "Enough to fund expansion, hire more staff, take on larger projects." I opened the folder. The figure on the investment proposal made me blink. "This is substantial." "It's approximately half my personal portfolio," she said calmly. "I believe in what you're building, Sophia. I always have." "What about Blackwell? Victor?" "Victor will remain at Blackwell, with more appropriate oversight from the board. As for me," she smiled, "I think I'm ready for a new challenge. If you'll have me, I'd like to join Terraform as a senior advisor. No controlling interest, no management role. Just experience to offer when requested." I felt tears threatening. The prodigal mother returns. She reached across the desk to take my hand. The mother who finally recognizes her daughter has surpassed her. 6 months later, we broke ground on our largest project yet, a mixed-use development combining affordable housing with commercial space, all built to the highest sustainability standards. The investment from my mother had allowed us to expand to 30 employees and move to larger offices. She had proven an invaluable advisor, opening doors with her industry connections while respecting the vision Nadia and I had established. At the groundbreaking ceremony, I stood with my team, hard hats on, ceremonial shovels in hand. Across the street, I noticed a familiar figure watching. Victor, looking less polished than he once had, observed from a distance before turning away. "Should we have invited him?" Nadia asked, following my gaze. "I did," I admitted. He declined. My mother joined us, camera in hand. "Family photo before the press arrives?" As we gathered together, Nadia, Rachel, my mother, and the core team that had believed in Terraform from the beginning, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path hadn't been what I expected, but it had led to something better than I could have imagined. To building the future, I said, raising my shovel like a toast. To building it right, my mother added. Later that evening, back in my office, I arranged 3 photos on my desk. One of my mother and me from the early Blackwell days, one of Nadia and me signing our partnership agreement, and the newest, our entire Terraform team at the groundbreaking, standing on the soil where our vision would take physical form. 3 chapters of a career, 3 versions of myself, each one necessary to create what stood now, not just a business, but a legacy built on principles that would endure long after the buildings themselves. I turned to my computer and opened the preliminary designs for our next project. After all, the blueprint for the future was still being drawn.